TWT slaying.
Hello, I wanted to share my testimony as to how I came to the realization that I am a Hebrew Israelite. I grew up in the church too, so about around 2009, I decided to leave the church. So there were several factors that led me to that decision, but the main thing is that caused me to leave was that I had became disheartened and just discouraged, and I felt like church wasn't serving its purpose, and it was not building me spiritually, so it was time to leave. um, Once I left, my spirit, it seems like it just came alive, and it was so thirsty. I was so thirsty to know God and what He was, and what was His role supposed to be in my life. And it was really kind of perplexing to me, is why is it that I'm feeling this way when I'm being in church all this time? I should be full, you know, but I wasn't. I was empty, and uh, if you can say dry bones, that's what I was feeling, just very dry on the inside until I actually left church. So that's very telling. So, like I said, that was in 2009. And whenever I left, I didn't study anymore. And up until that time, I had already read the Bible numerous times, and I still didn't have any understanding, because now I noticed the one important critical piece that not only was I missing, but anyone else, is because I didn't know who I was. We didn't know who we were, so that's why we're um, not able to have the full benefit of having a relationship with God. And then, as Pastor Omar Thibodeau had preached just this past Sunday, is that we were out of covenant. So, if you don't know who you are, really, then yeah, you are definitely out of covenant. So all those other things, like us not being hated because we are black, yeah, that may be true, but our real problem is because we don't know who we are, and that we are definitely out of covenant with Yah. So please excuse me if I go back and I revert and I say God. I'm still learning and still building. So sometimes I would say that, but anyway, when I left the church, on social media, which I really don't like. But I do think if it's a tool, if you use it wisely, you can get some good use out of it. But I also noticed too that pastors were leaving the church as well, and it was really perplexing as to how is it if you're a pastor that you don't know who the Israelite people are, and then number two, why is it that you're not sharing that information? So that's something I just want to really put out there and have people to chew on. If you, just still hasn't came into the realization, and you're going to church Sunday in and Sunday out. I was someone before I left was asked to even teach. Did I want to teach a Sunday school class because number one, I love history. I love to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always reading something, this or that or whatever. So I found it very disheartening for someone, who likes to study and was really curious and, wanted to know what was it that I was missing. And especially after I had read the Bible and I still couldn't come to that conclusion who I was. It was really amazing how something can be hidden from you or in plain sight. So I do thank goodness or thank y'all for technology, because I think until technology started really advancing, we were open up into that knowledge, was given unto us. We were able to find out. So, technology is not really a bad thing, but, it can be as a tool, for evil as well, I guess, just like any other thing. But anyway, once I had left the church, I didn't even study the Bible anymore because I was so discouraged. I was like, well, all this studying that I've been doing, is there even really such a thing as God? Even though I knew I was saying that in my heart, in my spirit, in my soul, I knew that it was because, it was something that was always drawing me to the Holy Spirit, even though I didn't know why. I just felt like whew, that I was touched, and all this time that Yah had his hands on me. And even though I decided that I was going to leave and I was through, he wasn't through with me. He kept me, and, even though it seems like his plan was to still prepare me for this season, you know, even though when I said I was through, he was still working with me and dealing with me. And I'm so grateful, for that. you know um, Even though in our foolishness, whether in our being naive, we may do and say things, but that's the love of God. He's forgiven. He wants to have a relationship with us, and he's an example of what love is. Whew, makes me very emotional just thinking about it. But anyway, once I had left, I was on social media, and I won't say what platform it was, nor would I say the page that I was following. But the moderator of this page claims to be a history buff and someone who really uh, specialized in the history of what we now know as Africa. And his main topic was always of Egypt, even though he would also talk about the many different tribes and clans and ethnic groups and customs of all the different, people in Africa. Even when he would do that, I knew it was something still missing, because I myself, I love history, I love to learn, and I'm always learning, always reading, and searching. And I always knew it was something more to our history than past slavery. And that's really something for one people to not know their history, know their customs, know their language. All of that was taken away, and it was taken away for a reason, because they could not let us know who we were. They were not going to let us know who we were. And that was the thing that always spurred my quest for knowledge, is because I know that my history didn't stop or begin as slavery. And I thought it was really a travesty that I didn't know my history beyond slavery. That's just doesn't make sense. And I think that's just the worst thing that you can do to a people. It's very devastating, as we all know. There's nothing I need to tell you of that. So anyway, as this person was really, just posting, and I would research, the things that he was saying. His story wasn't complete, because as he go on and on about Egypt, that's all he would talk about, when I know there's more to it. All throughout the Bible, Egypt is mentioned. So Israel and Egypt, their stories and histories are intertwined so deeply. So why is it that you just mention Egypt and not the other parts? So that really made me more so curious, and just another thing that just made me more determined to find out what's the big secret, because I had come to the conclusion that is something definitely being hidden, and they don't want us to know. And I was more determined than ever to find out what it was. So I had started looking on YouTube maybe 2 years ago, and I had been searching on YouTube's and watching various videos, but not really coming up with something that really made sense or resonated with me. And once you do a search, you'll start getting recommendations, which I really actually hate those recommendations, because they seem to be so off. But anyway, there was this one recommendation, and it was a video, and the title of the video, this is not exactly the name, but it was something to this effect: how to know for yourself that you are a Hebrew Israelite, or something to that effect. So I clicked on the video, and I looked to see who it was by, and it was somebody by the name of Teowt. I'm like, how do you pronounce that? No, I'm like, who is that? So now I know that to be Tio. So I clicked on the video, and I started listening. And one of the first things that they said: do not take our word for it. And they encourage you to do the research yourself. And I'm like, yes, you're pretty right, because, once I left the church, I was really determined not to let any other man tell me who I was, as far as the relationship with God and how it goes. I am pretty self-directed in my life other than that. So it doesn't make sense why I should let someone define me as far as that as well. So I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to take just your word for it. So after I started listening to the video, and I started writing down the scriptures that he had mentioned, scriptures that I had already read and went over and discussed, or so I thought, you know, and I started doing the research after the video, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a Hebrew Israelite. Oh my God. You have no idea what that did whenever I realized that. So, once I got to researching the tools that I used, and one of the things that he did mention was looking at the old ancient maps. So that's what I do. I like to study the old ancient maps. It will, really start making connections. I also study the Hebrew alphabet. I like the original, studying the original calendars and what each month stands for, and the Jewish traditions, etc. Once you start realizing that everything comes into play, and until then, you won't have the relationship that you've been thirsting for, been seeking, until you know who you are. Because who you are and who is Yah is one and the same. and you can't come into the full knowledge of either relationship until you know who you are. So, I always thought that we lived in some very, this is a good time to be alive, and I still think that, even though we're getting ready to come into some pretty, amazing things that's getting ready to happen. I'm good, and I think that I am at the point where God has prepared me for this time, and He will continue to prepare me for the role that I'll be playing, as all of this gets ready to roll out. Because, definitely before I had already said, I don't, I'm leaving, so I am preparing, and I hope everyone else is preparing, because yes, I do agree it's getting ready to be a great exodus. And when that happens, yes, all hell is going to break loose. So I just wanted to say hello, especially to Tio, and let you know that I love you all, and I'm really grateful for your teachings. And, just as you touched my life, I'm sure you're going to touch many more. But that is how I came to know that I am a Hebrew Israelite, is through Teo. And so, this is about my fifth take on a video, and I'm sorry I can't get it below 14 minutes. So, you know, um, but thank you for listening, and I hope, you share my video. And once again, I love you all, and thank you, Tail.